This video is going to pick up where I left off on my expanding wool production guide, and now I'm going to show you how you can get to uniform production to get more stars and potentially get more cash per hour. I already have a good amount of cash from running the town for some time. As you can see, 4 million cash, and I will be using all of that money just to get started with what I need to get some uniform crafting going. I'm going to need to build many fabric plants to craft all the items I need for uniforms, and fabric plants are very expensive, each one costing 500,000 cash to build and lots of materials, so I will need to collect lots of money in order to accomplish this. Uniforms require a large amount of wool, cotton, and wood for lumber. The good thing is I'm already producing a large amount of wool, but I do need to produce cotton, which is actually quite easy. I will also need to produce more wood, so I will be replacing some sheep pens for more tree farms, and likely we'll have to build more lumberjack houses and have multiple lumber mills working on lumber. So I will begin working on that plan now. For the cotton, I plan to have some cotton fields in this section. Cotton requires 4 water in order to grow, so I will need to come up with a way to get more passive water, so I will need a couple of ponds. Now, in order to make those ponds, I'm going to need a well or a wind pump. So the plan here is I am going to build one single wind pump. Since it's faster than the well, I'm going to build it right here. And the ponds that I'm planning on having, I may need 2, I may need 3. I'm actually going to build 3 for the time being in case I do need all of them. These 3 ponds will allow me to effectively run at least 7 cotton fields right here. The cotton fields will have to be picked up by farmers, so I will need a couple of farmers. Not exactly sure how many just yet. So the plan is to, at the moment, just build 2 farmer houses. I'm going to go to the shop farm tab and find the farmhouse. I'm going to build 2 of them right there. The cotton will have to be stored in the silo, so I am going to have to build a silo. And the silo casts 3 shade, so I want to make sure that I build it in an area where it won't affect the cotton, which is going to work right here. That's where I'm going to have the silo. Going to be in the farm tab, just scroll down some. Silos right here, and I am going to add 2 more roads right here. Eventually the farmers will go pick up the cotton, and it's preferably they want to go through the roads because it's faster and they'll be able to deposit it in the silo much faster that way. Now I'm going to need a lot of roads here because I'm going to have fabric plants around here. However, those roads need to be paved roads. The fabric plant requires a paved road, or else you aren't able to build it. So I'll go to the shop, industrial, fabric plant is right here at the top. So you can see 500,000 to build each fabric plant. 10 lumber, 10 wood, 10 energy, so many resources. It also has a high wage cost, and it must be placed next to a paved road, so it won't let me build it. So I am going to be making paved roads. The way I'm planning to set it up is I'm gonna have 5 paved roads here, and I'm just gonna make regular roads for the time being and just upgrade each one to a paved road. Let me go ahead and get my wind pump finished. There we go. And these 5 roads, I'm gonna go ahead and upgrade them all. It is going to use 1 lumber and 3 wood for each of these roads. So I am gonna once again have to craft lumber. I'm gonna turn my lumber mill back on, making lumber. Have my silo built right here. I'll leave my farmhouses waiting until I can get my cotton production up and running. So I am going to need a lot more wood because most of my wood is being used for wool. And especially since once I get to my uniform crafting production chain, well, that's going to require wool yarn and cotton yarn. And both wool yarn and cotton yarn require 1 lumber for each one. And I'm going to need multiple. So yes, I am going to need a higher wood production rate. So what I'm going to do is be getting rid of these sheep pens over here. And this side will just purely focus on tree farms. So I can get a bigger wood production from this area. All of these will be tree farms. Now I may end up needing more lumberjacks. So I will, for the time being, have 3 lumberjacks over here in this area. And I'm actually not completely sure how many lumberjacks I'll need. So just to be safe, I'll have 3 more lumberjacks right here. It might speed up the process. So eventually I know that I'll definitely need more lumber mills since I'll need a lot of lumber. So I am going to put 1 road here, that way I can place a building here. I want to make sure my lumber mills are close to a water pump, that way they have the 1 passive water drum that they need. And this spot will have 3, at minimum 3 passive energy, so it has 4 passive energy, 3 from here, 1 from here. I want to make sure I put them in spots with 2 passive energy and at least 1 passive water drum. So I want to have a lumber mill here. Eventually I'll also probably have 1 here. For the time being, I'll go to the industrial tab and build a lumber mill right here. So I am building the paved roads and the lumber mill and the ponds. So all my builders are going to be busy. If I really wanted to, I could also put down more builders, but I'm going to hold off on that. Now, for energy production, there's multiple ways I could do this. What I am going to do for the time being is turn on all my crude oil. It's actually going to make more crude oil than my fuel storages can handle. But I am also going to have 1 power plant crafting energy for the time being. Now, I am going to need way more energy than that. So preferably a good way to get energy would once again be the wind turbines. The first thing I did to get energy for the power plants. Just because the power plants would take too long to actually craft energy because they'd be using up crude oil, and I also need that crude oil for gasoline, which is problematic. So I am going to have to find a way to get energy from wind turbines. So first of all, I need a warehouse once more. Now I am planning to build my warehouse down here. That is preferably where I'm going to want my warehouse in the end. For the time being, just for now, I'm going to go ahead and place down a warehouse right here. Just for the time being, but eventually I will want it down there. Put a warehouse here. I did get this road built. I'm going to need to find a place with 0 shade so I can produce some energy. Now, yes, I could just do it here. Eventually I will have cotton here, but I'm not going to have the cotton there yet. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and put a wind turbine here. And I can't put one here because the wind turbine would catch shade. So get this wind turbine there first. And I have to remember that the wind turbine casts to shade. So I could build 2 more roads and put a wind turbine here. Now the wind turbines are temporary. Once I've built all the fabric plants that I'm intending to build, I will no longer need any more wind turbines crafting energy. But for the time being, I'll have 2 wind turbines running. And the worker house will work on collecting the energy for those wind turbines. What might end up happening is I'll be too busy picking up crude oil. It's possible, especially since the wind turbines are pretty far. So what I can do is have another worker house nearby so they can pick up the energy quicker, just temporarily. I'm gonna have another worker house built right here. They cast 2 shades, so the shade's not going to affect the wind turbine. The shade does not affect sheep pens. Sheep pens don't mind shade, but they do not like dirty. The way this is set up, none of the sheep pens are affected by any dirty from over here. I do have the warehouse built, just need the wind turbines and the worker house for the energy production. And I have almost all these paved roads built, which is good. I'm going to want to make all these roads right here paved roads as well. So I'm also going to be working on that at the same time. So I've explained what my plans are for the moment, so I'm gonna go ahead and speed up this footage once everything here is done and I've paved all of these roads. Then I will continue with the next step. Now, you don't have to pave all the roads right away, but I am just gonna go ahead and pave all the roads to get the process done quicker. So yeah. So I have the roads paved that I needed to be paved. One other important thing that I'm going to need is another power plant. I'm going to build another power plant right here. The reason I need that power plant is because I'm going to need to provide passive energy for the fabric plants. Now the fabric plants making uniforms will need 3 passive energy, so I can already put one right here. But I'll need multiple fabric plants crafting wool yarn and cotton yarn. All of those will need 1 passive energy each. I'll need more fabric plants making cotton yarn than I will making wool yarn, because each uniform is going to cost me 1 wool yarn, 3 cotton yarn, and 3 energy, which the energy is passive. So if you ratio it correctly, you're going to need 1 fabric plant for uniforms, 1 fabric plant for wool yarn, and 3 fabric plants for cotton yarn. That's the way it's going to end up working out. So that's going to be my initial goal. Right after I make this power plant, I'm going to work on 5 fabric plants at the same time. It's going to cost a lot of resources, just like this power plant: 10 lumber, 10 wood, 10 energy. But it is going to take a while to come up with all the resources that I need. I will also turn on the lumber mill once I see that I have enough wood and I need to focus more on crafting lumber, because it may get to that point. I'm just going to speed it up until the power plant's done, then I'm going to start on the fabric plants. The power plant has been built. I'm going to turn off the energy production so it doesn't waste crude oil. I did turn off the energy production here as well. What I did while I was waiting on the power plant is I did end up building this warehouse because I noticed that this one was full of energy, and I know I am going to need more energy, and that is where I want the warehouse to be in the end. I am eventually going to get rid of these wind turbines because I need cotton here. Not quite yet though. But I will probably want another wind turbine somewhere else. So I decided that I'm going to make a road here, so I can put down a wind turbine here because there is no shade and it's not going to negatively impact any trees. So it's a good spot for a wind turbine right there. I'm going to keep this running for the time being up until I actually really need cotton, which won't be until I start making cotton yarn. But I'm now to the point where I can start building some fabric plants. It's going to cost a lot of energy, a lot of wood, and a lot of lumber. But I am making lumber at a decent rate now. I'm going to be alternating between turning on and off these lumber mills, depending on whether I need lumber or whether I need wood. So I am going to be working on 5 fabric plants at the same time. I believe I'm going to have 2 here, 1 for uniforms, 1 for wool yarn. Actually, no, I'll have the 1 for wool yarn right here. The fabric plant for wool yarn, preferably you want to have it close to the storehouse because it's going to be making 5 trips to the storehouse and then 1 trip to the lumber yard for lumber. So that fabric plant will be right here. The fabric plant for uniforms, you want that to be close to the warehouse, which the warehouse that we're going to keep is right here, because it's going to pick up wool yarn and cotton yarn, and that gets stored in a warehouse. And you also want it to be in an area with 3 passive energy. So I'm going to select this spot right here as my first fabric plant for uniforms. And then I'm also going to need a total of at least 3 fabric plants to start with for the cotton. And the fabric plants for the cotton, preferably you want it close to the silo because that's going to be making 5 trips in order to get 5 cotton in total. And then it's also going to make 1 trip to the lumberyard to pick up lumber. So I'm going to be building 3 fabric plants here. And they all have at minimum 1 passive energy. Since cotton yarn will take 1 passive energy, 1 energy in order to craft it. So I'm working on those 5. I have a good source of energy. I have excess crude oil. If I really wanted to, I suppose I could have a power plant craft energy. But what I'm actually going to do is, since I don't actually need this many oil pumps, I probably could do with 4 or 5. I'm gonna assume that 5 is more than enough. I'm gonna actually get rid of these 2 oil pumps since I never actually needed them. And I'm gonna place down 2 more lumberjack houses because I believe that'll help me gather more wood. If I notice that my lumberjacks ends up falling asleep, that's because I don't have enough trees for them to chop down and get wood. If that's the case, I can easily add at minimum 2 more trees right here. I'm not going to do that unless I absolutely have to, but if you notice that I add 2 more trees, that is why. So once again, I'm just going to speed this up until these 5 fabric plants are done, and then I can move on to actually getting what I need to start crafting at least some uniforms. Okay, so the fabric plants are finished building. I am completely full on energy, but I will be using some of that energy up in a moment to build more fabric plants. First things first, I am going to go ahead and get rid of both of these wind turbines. Also get rid of the dirt roads that I had right here. I'm also going to be getting rid of that temporary worker house right here. And I'm going to plant some cotton fields. Not exactly sure how many I'll be needing just yet. But I'm going to settle with 5 cotton fields for the time being. And I make sure they all have at least 4 passive water so that they'll actually be able to grow. And the 2 farm houses with that have the farmers, they're gonna go pick up the cotton fields and take them to the silo. If I were to also pave these 2 roads, it would be slightly quicker as well. But I'll worry about that later. I'm gonna go ahead and finish building all my fabric plants. So this fabric plant right here, I wanted to work on crafting wool yarn. It's gonna pick up 5 wool from the storehouse. All 3 of these are gonna work on crafting cotton yarn. And this fabric plant is going to work on crafting uniforms. Now I am gonna need to clear up some space eventually so that I can actually fit in the wool yarn and the cotton yarn and also the uniforms that I'll be making because they have to go to a warehouse. So really, I actually have too much energy. I'm gonna go ahead and flush this storage out. So yeah, I got rid of 20 energy, but that's fine. I'll be making more than enough with just this wind turbine over here. So this setup right here will allow me to slowly start making uniforms. I'll still be selling wool, but over time, I'll slowly work on getting my first batch 10 uniforms and also be selling that. I'm going to be using a lot more lumber now because I am working on these fabric plants, wool yarn and cotton yarn. I do believe that I'll be better off with a 3rd lumber mill. So I'm gonna make a 3rd lumber mill right here. I have my passive water drawn from this water pump, and I also have passive energy. I may get to the point where I will actually need even more tree farms. So if it does get to that point, I may have to remove some more sheep pens to put more tree farms, or once again, I could actually put 2 tree farms here, which that may be a good idea. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I have a tree farm here and a tree farm here because I already have at least 5 passive water in those areas. Okay. So the builders are going to use up the wood on this, and eventually I'll have 3 lumber mills. So, like I said, I'm going to slowly be crafting wool yarn and cotton yarn. I'm already making my first wool yarn and my first cotton yarn. We're going to take it to the warehouse, and this fabric plant's going to work on the uniforms. If you have enough money, you want to continue to build up more fabric plants. That way you can obviously speed up this process even further. More than likely, you'll want fabric plants working on your wool yarn or cotton yarn. Because I don't have enough money to build 5 more right now, but I could probably build like 3. So I'm going to build a fabric plant right here, and one right here, and another one right here. I'm gonna work with that right now. Pretty much spent all my money. While I wait on these 3 fabric plants to also finish building, it's going to be continuing to sell wool and see how long it takes me to actually get to 10 uniforms. I did make a lumber mill here. If I need more lumber, I will turn this lumber mill on. If not, I'll just leave these two running because I'm also using both wood and lumber. So this will definitely take some time. I'm of course going to fast forward it. I do want to put down 2 more meadows over here. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward it. Feel free to skip until this part is done. Now that these 3 fabric plants are finished, I'm going to build them all. I am temporarily going to have them all work on crafting more cotton yarn. Because it seems that cotton yarn is what I need to be crafted the most. But eventually I'll change one out for uniform and another one out for yarn. I do have enough money to build 1 more fabric plant over here. And that one's also going to be making cotton yarn. And then I can decide if I'm able to switch one of these to wool yarn and another one of these to uniform. I'm still keeping this warehouse right here. This warehouse I still plan on removing eventually. But for the time being, I will keep it since I'm still generating energy with it. In order to save space, I may possibly turn off this wind turbine, as I have plenty of energy and I'm going to have to wait probably until I can get to 10 uniforms before I have enough money to make another 1 or 2 fabric plants. I'm going to go ahead and stop this wind turbine. After I get this built, I will probably be able to run all 3 lumber mills in order to get more lumber production out. And I am considering getting rid of 3 builders, that way I can have 2 more lumberjacks working to collect more wood. We look at my production monitor rates, which may not be completely accurate because it's been running for 2 hours even after I made changes. I'm only making 18 uniforms per hour, so it's a very slow process at the moment. But I'm still making somewhere around 400 wool per hour. So that's a good thing. I'm still making cash from selling wool. Eventually, I'll make even more cash from selling uniforms. So, in the current version that I'm playing, 10 uniforms will sell and give me 344,500 cash. So pair that with the wool and it's a little bit more money, not a whole lot, but a little bit more. But uniforms will also give an increased amount of stars for better scoring. If the meta was to make uniforms or make another product that required uniforms, then this would work out better. Say if uniforms were boosted to give out more stars, then you would definitely want to make uniforms because they would give you the most score. That's why you want to follow the meta, which you always want to know what it is. But in this case, I'm just showing you how to craft uniforms just to possibly make a little bit more money and a little bit more stars. Generally, you would want to just probably focus on selling wool to collect cash and then transition to whatever is the meta in your situation. So I'm going to fast forward, let this run. After this is built, I'm going to have it craft cotton yarn, and then I'm going to get rid of 3 builders, put a dirt road, and put 2 lumberjacks. I'm going to do all of that. I am going to reset this production monitor right now. Going to leave it on like this, and yeah, just speed it up, leave this running. I may actually skip forward in order to save time. It's gonna take some time in order to get all the money I need. One last thing I'm gonna do is go to my auto sell and actually add uniforms to the auto sell. So as soon as I get 10 uniforms, it will sell the uniforms. So there we go. Gonna leave it, speed it up. So I did sell my first batch of 10 uniforms. Uniform per hour rate seems to have gone up to 27 per hour. Wool per hour is about at 385 per hour. It's still adjusting because it still needs time to adjust. But now that I have enough cash to build 1 more fabric plant, I will be doing so. And I do kind of want to get rid of that warehouse so I can just have them focus on this warehouse. I also could just get rid of a lumberjack and put the fabric plant here. So what I decided to do is, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of this lumberjack and just build the fabric plant here. Might not be able to, yeah, I might not be able to set up all the fabric plants that I want. So I might just end up going for 2 fabric plants, crafting uniforms, and 2 fabric plants, crafting wool yarn. I'm gonna switch this one over to wool yarn. Yeah, 2 of them crafting wool yarn. And once this one finishes crafting cotton yarn, I'll switch it over to uniforms. And then I'll finally have a total of 6 fabric plants crafting cotton yarn. It's still gonna take time in order for me to gather up more money to build more fabric plants, but once I build this fabric plant, have that one also run cotton yarn, I'm just going to leave it running for a couple of hours and then come back and share what my rate is. And from there, if you wanted to, of course, you could just add more fabric plants, 3 more making cotton yarn, add another one making wool yarn, and another one making uniforms. And that would probably allow you to use all the wool in order to make more uniforms. I'm not exactly sure if I need more cotton, so let me just check. 306 cotton per hour. It takes 5 cotton to make a cotton yarn. So that would allow me to make about 60 cotton yarn per hour. The math doesn't necessarily add up at the moment. That's because I had spare cotton on the silo already. So if this is correct, I will actually need either more farmers or more cotton yarns. In this case, it does look like I'll need at least 1 more farmer. I'm going to build 1 more farmer to help with the cotton production. And I probably don't need another cotton field as far as I can tell. And I probably might actually need more farmer houses, but I'm just gonna settle for 1 extra farmer. Lumber seems to be okay as far as I can tell for now. So I'm gonna go to my auto sell. And when it comes to crafting high tier items like this, you probably also want to put all the other lower tier items on auto sell just so they don't jam up your storages. So I put wool yarn on auto sell, and I also want to put cotton yarn on auto sell just in case something happens and it gets to the point where I'm overproducing cotton yarn or wool yarn. And if I'm not actively paying attention, then I don't want it to jam up my storages. In this case, my warehouses. So if it ever gets to the point where I have 10 wool yarn or 10 cotton yarn, I want it to go ahead and just sell it so it doesn't clog up and stop my uniform production. So go to auto sell and auto sell cotton yarn. All these other items won't clog up my production. Like for example, energy, I'm not crafting any more energy. It is possible crude oil may clog up my fuel storage. But I know for sure if I turn one of these crude oil pumps off, then I'll be okay. I'm going to leave that running. I'll have more than enough gasoline because I'm crafting less wool since I'm crafting more, since I'm crafting uniforms now. So that's gonna work out just fine. So still working on that. Okay. Gonna leave me with 4 energy that I don't need, but that's completely okay. I'm just gonna let that sit there. And yeah, I'll just let the wind turbine sit there, even though I probably don't need it anymore. Okay. So I'm going to leave it here, speed it up. As soon as the fabric plant and farmhouse are done, finish building it. Come back in a couple hours and I will share what the production rate is. So I am going to go ahead and speed this up and then skip it up until I come back and share the rates. And that'll be it for the guide once I do that. Okay, so after some hours of testing, it's doing about 358 wool per hour and about 27 uniforms per hour. So I did the math and it comes out to about 2.2 million cash per hour. But you have to subtract the wages, which comes out to about 400k per hour in wages. So with all that math, I'm getting about 1.8 million in profit per hour. So slightly higher than what I started with when I just had the wool rush setup going on. That was making me about 1.4 or 1.5 million profit per hour. With the uniforms added, it's only about 1.8 million per hour, but that's because it can be improved. So you want to look at your rates whenever you're trying to improve your production. My wool yarn is at 33 per hour, but my uniforms are at 27. That tells me that I can easily push uniforms to 33 per hour with this setup. The thing that's stopping me is my cotton yarn rates. It's 3 cotton yarn per uniform. So I would need to get my cotton yarn rate to about 100 per hour in order to match what I'm trying to make with my wool yarn. And the way I bump up my cotton yarn rates is there's 2 ways, but the way that I most likely need to do it right now, I don't have enough cotton in the silo. I probably need to add 1 or even 2 more farmer houses and potentially add another 1 or 2 more cotton fields, which I would put anywhere where there's at least 4 passive water. I could put 1 here and I could put 1 here. Right there. 2 farmer houses. For lumberjacks, if I really needed to, I could put 2 lumberjacks here, move the builder somewhere else. I could also just put 2 lumberjacks over here because all these ranchers are falling asleep because there's not enough work for them to do anymore. But yeah, those are some adjustments that I would make. If the fabric plants aren't making cotton fast enough, cotton yarn fast enough, then I would put down, of course, one more fabric plant making cotton yarn right here, or get rid of this warehouse and put it right there. But yeah, I most likely did sell a batch of 10 wool yarn, so I probably did make a little more than 1.8 million profit per hour, possibly 1.9 million profit per hour. So it definitely is making more money per hour than what I started with. It is definitely making more stars per hour. So it is an improvement, even though these buildings do cost a lot of money and I'm paying high wages. It is making more money per hour, and it can definitely be improved and expanded even further to make even more money and more stars. But that's it for this uniform guide. So we went from a brand new town in the first video, got to wool production, then expanded our wool production in the second video after we completed our pacific gas production. And in this third video, we got all the way to uniform production by expanding this area right here with fabric plants and another power plant and additional workers to pick up the cotton. So hopefully this guide helped you, as well as the prior two guides, in order for you to understand how to better play Town Star and what to look for. So if you like this guide, consider liking the video, leave a comment with any feedback you might have, or any questions you still have about Town Star. And if you still haven't subscribed, well then you should definitely subscribe so you don't miss out on my content. I appreciate all your support. Thank you for watching.